Welcome to Level with Emily Reese. This is a conversation with YouTuber Jacob Geller. I met Jacob because at the end of the year, the past few years, I've been a guest on the MinMax show and talked about some of my favorite video game soundtracks of the year. It's hosted by Ben Hansen, who's like the overlord of MinMax Studio. Kyle Hilliard is usually there. Jacob Geller is also there. So this is how I met Jacob. And I love talking to Jacob. I love his insights about music and just games in general and other stuff too. I really, really enjoy his videos. I think he puts them together really well. They're scripted really well and very thoughtfully produced. And, he takes me as the viewer singularly on a journey, which I really appreciate. Like, I feel like he's making his videos for me, which is really cool. I can tell that my experience of watching his videos is important to him as the experience that made him want to make the video in the first place, if that makes sense. So I just really love his videography, I guess, or whatever. So anyway, not a lot of music, actually none in this episode. We usually don't put music in the YouTube videos anyway. So I feel less compelled to send you to listen to the audio version of the podcast, but you can find us on Discord. That link is down in the show notes. Join us on YouTube here. Subscribe, please. And if you can support us financially on Patreon, that would be wonderful. All right, here is Jacob Geller.
I'm Jacob Geller. I am a video essayist, I guess. I write and edit and produce long-form video essays that are usually on video games, but sometimes on other things. And those go on YouTube. And I'm also a cohort with MinMax, and I freelance as well. I spend a lot of time just writing and talking about video games.
Yeah. And, a lot of the MinMaxers are here where I live in Minneapolis or the Twin Cities, but you are not. Do you want to talk about that a little?
Sure. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. I interned at Game Informer. That's kind of how I got to know Ben Hansen and the Minnesota crew in general. But I am one of their foreign correspondents.
That's fantastic. I mean, I guess North Carolina compared to Minnesota does seem rather foreign, mostly because I would imagine your temperature is above zero today. That's one of the things. It's
above zero. We're still dealing with it like it's the middle of winter because we're very unprepared for the cold.
But also, I feel like that part of the country, you still have seasons, right? It's not like summer right now by any means.
Oh, no. Yeah, there's still seasons. I mean, I loved when I was a kid, there would be the warning of snow about 3 times a year, and then it would snow once a year, but they would cancel school for all of the days because they knew that North Carolina has one snowplow to share. And so no one could be on the roads.
Just one dude out there for 48 hours or something. Oh, that's hilarious. So you mentioned that you interned at Game Informer. And I know that, for instance, your top 10 games of 2022, which I highly recommend. It's a fantastic video going through your 10 choices, which are great choices too.
Thank you.
But in that video, oh my God, I just lost my train of thought. What the hell?
I was interning at Game Informer, something related to that.
Yeah, you were interning at Game Informer. What did you mention in that video that made me think of it? We'll come back to it. Oh, that's what it was. It was that, when you were a child, you talk about how Elden Ring is like the game that you kind of dreamt of when you were a child, like what's possible in video games. And so I was really struck by that comment, even though I lost my train of thought with regards to it. But just because, you spent a lot of time, it sounds like, when you were really young, thinking quite critically about games. Is that true?
Yes, it's kind of like, it's very easy in retrospect to trace a path to like where I am now in regards to games, because my parents were not kind of big on games, didn't really have any like individual experience with them, and just, you know, kind of knew the bad things and didn't want their kid watching TV all the time. But they did like me reading and thinking about things. And so I had a subscription to Game Informer before I had a video game console, you know, like it was because I really liked games, and that was a way that they could kind of like, you know, play into what I wanted my hobby to be without actually like enabling me to some level. And so like I spent a lot of time just reading Game Informers and other kind of like games writing things. I mean, I've talked about kind of like forum threads on game facts that I found incredibly influential and I still think about sometimes. But it was like, you know, I read about Shadow of the Colossus and was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like an incredible experience, and was kind of like thinking about what that game was for a long time before I played it. And I had that experience with like a lot of things. And so now being someone whose job is communicating the emotional experience of video games to other people, I feel like it's like I was training for that, you know. Yeah. I was studying.
Yeah, it does seem like that was your path. I mean, if I think about my path to where I'm sitting right now, it's all over the place, right? It's which I think is normal too. I think maybe more so normal than
I mean, and sure, there are also, I mean, it's like I have a sociology degree. I was like a research assistant for a while. Like I've done things that were not about video games necessarily, but
yeah,
even those things can be pretty easily channeled back into the stuff that I'm doing now.
Yeah, I mean, what drew you to sociology? What was the fascination there for you?
I started as a like political science major or whatever, just because you don't know a lot of topics going in, and I didn't really want to be doing like a STEM field thing. And I quickly found out that so people have different experiences. I felt like sociology was political science if you acknowledge the existence of facts. Like political science was kind of like, I don't know. Let's talk about all these different ideologies. How do we tell which one is real? And sociology was like, okay, we can see that when you do these things, this is the effect that they have, you know, kind of using data in a way that really appealed to me. And so, I mean, I've always had kind of a strong political justice-y slant of just like, I want to be able to kind of have answers to the things that I am upset about. And sociology I found pretty rewarding in that. But also it just like it was really good training on how to take like science language and turn it into normal person language, which is something that I still do a lot now.
Yeah. In what way do you do it now, do you think?
I mean, I do a lot of research for all of my videos, and there is a lot of just kind of like, I want to read high level stuff, but I don't want my videos to have kind of like a college degree, you know, entry gate or whatever. And so, I mean, I have sitting next to me this huge, horrible biography of Reagan, which the book is okay. Reading a 400-page book about Reagan is bad, but it's like I do that so that I can pull out, you know, like the 5 things that are really interesting and related to a current topic and use that to paint a picture. And I do think that having kind of a social sciences degree is good for just like learning how to read and pull out the parts that are relevant to what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah. It also kind of like teaches you to study, right? It like taught you how to research and study. I mean, which maybe you were already, you know, had an affinity for, but yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I also just the kind of like the type of knowledge it is where it's like, I've never been good at kind of math or hard sciences where it is like I've always been good at something that allows me to just like explain my thoughts out loud. And so it's like when you're talking about like political theory, it's like, okay, I can tell you like what Gramsci thought and kind of walk through his train of thought. And it's like, that makes sense to me much more than like kind of complicated formulas ever did.
Yeah. So one of the videos that I do want to talk about games, and we'll get there. But one of the videos that I ended up making it most of the way through, there were many. Let's just be clear. It's just like the one video I watched. The one that drew my attention right away is one where you were going through therapy apps. And, this is something that I've dumped a ton of money into over the course of my adult life. I think probably I first experienced it when I was in my early 20s, but then I didn't really go back to it until probably around the time I was 30. And then it's been a pretty consistent part of my life that I find very helpful, but also at times, depending on what phase of my life I was in, completely cost prohibitive. And, that's something that you kind of were talking about. You're like, if I can get this through an app, then great, because it's way cheaper than through insurance because you're self-insured. So that just makes
that was, I mean, outrageous. I this became my like full-time gig this year. And like, if universal health insurance was a thing, I would have started doing it full-time 3 years ago. It was like, it really, health insurance was like the thing. And so even, long before that video came out, it was something I was kind of thinking about.
Yeah, it's like tangential to actual medical care, right? Which is frustrating. It's like you still have these, even though I have insurance through my radio job, I still have to pay quite a bit just for the therapy part, right? So that's frustrating. But I love that you parsed through, you called it egregious self-help snake oil. I got the biggest kick out of that. But
I think that was the one where you could pay a premium subscription to the app for additional inspirational quotes. It was like, you want to see just a longer list of something that someone else Googled? Here you go.
And the fact that they gave you a Margaret Thatcher quote and a Winston Churchill quote.
Yeah, they were really hitting their kind of detestable British politicians.
Oh, amazing. But what made you want... That's because I think therapy is becoming more normalized, obviously, for the better, which is great. But it still is a scary thing in some ways to talk about, let alone, go through what you spend a month with each app or with I mean, and then to share that experience with others. That's a very personal thing. So what made you decide to tackle that and turn it into a video?
Yeah, I mean, there was before I started doing any of the app stuff, I kind of had just like written down the two games that I talk about in that video, which are Eliza and Unearth You, which are both kind of different levels of experimental, but like really interesting stories about automated therapy and whatever. And I just kind of thought, those are interesting. There's a connection there. And then I like left it for a year. But it was really the kind of like, I had started therapy. Like I started therapy, at the beginning of this year or whatever. And I did not want to talk about automated therapy without having done the real deal. I didn't want to just be kind of like projecting what I thought this was supposed to be onto it. But it is, I mean, I think it's kind of an interesting, I don't know if I would call it a generational divide, but it's like almost everyone I know talks about kind of in the abstract dealing with anxiety and or depression in a way that makes it feel almost not stigmatized. I mean, it's like there is this kind of the difference between what you would actually talk about with a therapist of like why I am feeling anxious, but just like the experience of having anxiety and having that affect your life is at this point just so ubiquitous that when I was making that, I really did not feel like I was revealing so much about myself just because I was like, I feel like if someone looked at me, they would guess that I had anxiety. Like it doesn't like, I didn't feel that I was unveiling more of kind of my personal life than I
Yeah.
already had just through like the other topics that I had talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it is one of those, like I've always kind of drawn a line between like I don't want to talk about just the things that I do in my life that much, but I do want to share the things that I'm feeling, and most of my videos are like I had this emotional experience and now I'm going to try to relate that to other things. And so talking about the therapy apps really just felt like of a piece with that.
Yeah. I love that when you talk about games, how it's clear how they emotionally impact you. It's not you just talking about what you loved about the mechanics or the visuals or whatever. It's like what you loved about the experience emotionally. And that is really powerful. The other thing I like about your videos is that you talk to me. You don't talk to you guys. And I mean, that's a huge radio no is to talk to the group, right? You always talk to the individual on the radio. And so I feel that when you are relaying these experiences, you're like, please play Citizen Sleeper. Like if there's anything you do from this list, I want you to play this, And I was like, damn, okay. I will, because you told me to. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about it in exactly those terms before, but it makes it, and really like my strategy has always been kind of like I need to be interested in what the video is in like I don't one of my main kind of no-nos on YouTube is like you cannot know the answer when you see a video title or you see a video topic, where it's like if I saw a video that was like, what makes Mario's jump good, even if the video was interesting, I'd be like, well, I know what makes Mario's jump good. It feels I like hopping around, and so like I am always trying to make videos that I would really want to click on, like as Jacob Geller. And so I feel like then because of that, it's like I'm writing it to an individual myself, but I'm glad that then kind of gets communicated outward where it's like, yeah, I'm not writing this for kind of YouTube general interest. I'm writing this because it's like a very specific fixation that I have that I just need to get on paper.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about Citizen Sleeper a little bit, because I have not played it and I have been listening to the soundtrack, and it is, of course, phenomenal. But I highly recommend people watch the video of your top 10s, but do you mind giving us a tiny crash course on what you loved so much about that game? That was not your number one game, by the way, but
this is kind of a year where the number one is pre-decided for everyone, and then it's a contest for everything.
We're gonna get to that one for sure, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Citizen Sleeper is one of these kind of recent crops of games where the main draw is really the writing, and I feel like these have existed for a long time, but Disco Elysium was a big one of those for people where they kind of realized like, wow, a like truly well-written game can be as engaging as a really good counter mechanic. Like I will sit and read a book if the book is great. And so Citizen Sleeper has that level of like really evocative writing and stuff. But the interesting thing about it is in most of those games, it's hard to like, there's not that much gaminess to them, like in Disco Elysium, you are largely having long conversations with people, and those conversations are entertaining, and that's kind of the game. Whereas in Citizen Sleeper, you are managing all these different kind of ways that you're being kind of oppressed by the system, like you have money that is constantly not enough, and you have hunger and you never have enough money to buy food, and you have a kind of like you're literally just running on kind of a battery that's meant to run out at some point, and so you have to keep replacing that battery, and that's another thing just weighing on your mind. And so the game is, very clearly about kind of the horrors of modern capitalism, but it makes you like, it kind of communicates that desperation really clearly through gameplay systems, while still maintaining this very beautiful kind of ethereal style of writing. And so I found the combination of those two things to be just kind of entrancing.
Yeah, beautiful as well. Just beautiful art, fantastic music.
Yeah, it is all on board a fairly small space station, and it is one of those things where even though the game doesn't have traditional graphics and you don't like walk around the space station in 3D, you just kind of feel by the end like, I know this place. I understand the different sectors of the space stations and like the different kinds of people who live in each place.
Love that. Love that. And then number one, as you said, it was predetermined. And I think, of course, we're talking about Elden Ring. And I think I'm still shocked that it didn't win Soundtrack of the Year. And I don't tend to give a shit about the Game Awards. I mean, I find it interesting, right? I mean, oh, this is what this group of people thinks the best things of the year are. But I was really, really surprised by that. Not that the God of War Ragnarok music didn't deserve it, because it's fantastic. I love Bear McCreary all day, but I was really surprised by that. But game wise, I mean, really, I'd never experienced anything like it before.
Were you a Souls person previously?
No, I dabbled. I tried them, and they were way too hard for my brain to want to keep trying.
One of the things that I was really pleased about this year is I played Elden Ring, I got it a little early and was playing it and thought, wow, this is great. Also, this feels very similar to the other Souls games to me. And so if you look at like the early conversation that Kyle and I had on MinMax where we were talking about Elden Ring, we were both kind of like, I don't know if this is going to win you over if you weren't into the previous Souls games. And I have been just so glad to be wrong. And I have so many friends, I mean, you and Ben and others who have never touched one of these before, and then, got into Elden Ring and been like, this is the one that works. This one really clicks for me.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's not on rails made a huge difference for me, because I could run away and then grind and farm all the runes I wanted before I felt comfortable going back, or not going back at all in some cases.
Yeah, you can just be like, nope, you can have that one. I don't need to kill you.
Exactly. I did get stuck at one point finally, and I haven't gone back, and I'll go back, but I got stuck trying to get into the big Citadel City area. But that's
there's like a really tough boss outside of that, like one of the horseback guys.
Yep, I've never been able to get past him, and I've tried all the tricks, but maybe not all the tricks, but I tried a lot of tricks, and then I was like, you know what? Fuck you, I'm done. But it bummed me out because I really wanted to get into that city, so I know I'll go back. But
did you mess with the multiplayer much? Were you trying to like pull people into the world?
I did not. Should I?
You should try that. I mean, I'm a hardcore one of these players, and it's like there's no false achievements. It's like you use every single tool it gives you because it is assuming that you're going to be using all of those. And so
that's fair enough.
Yeah, working with other people is really fun in those games. And sometimes you do get someone who comes and just shoots a giant like Death Star beam at the boss, and it just evaporates, and it's like, hey, you know what? Like, I'll take it. I have beat my head against this guy for a week. I wanted that.
Yeah, I mean, just I had I think the same experience you were speaking of, where you think you've seen it all kind of in that game, even knowing I had more to see, but it was like, I was always amazed when I realized that there was the underground, or when I just stumbling across any of those things and it was just so breathtakingly beautiful and real. even though
Yeah.
it's fantastical, it was still just such a real emotion in those games.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that series has always been so good but the scale that Elden Ring does it is almost unbelievable. Of kind of one of those, like, nothing is here because it just seemed like a good place to put some gameplay. It's like when you see some ruins, you can just kind of feel that there's like 100 years of reasons why those ruins are there.
Yeah.
And the fact that they kind of keep that consistently true over just how freaking big that game is really, really impressive.
It's so impressive. And yeah, I just spent a lot of time in that game in whatever the second quarter, not long after it came out. And the music, boy, that music was so moving. I mean, I'm so used to the Souls music, as we were talking about with Min-Max being, just in your face during the boss fights, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And I love all those soundtracks are so good. But the tender side of the Souls music is what we got in Elden Ring.
There would always, every game, there would be like one or two tracks that were like, this is nice. This isn't just kind of like big horns scaring me while a boss charges at me. And Elden Ring has a lot of those. It's not just one or two. Like it has several that you could imagine kind of casually listening to and not just freaking out like you would if you were listening to the Bloodborne soundtrack or something.
Exactly. Those are crazy. So when did you start? We're going to back it up a little bit. When did you, when you were an intern at Game Informer, what kinds of things were your responsibilities then?
So we were all of the interns except Leo Vader, who's their one and only video intern, are like news writing essentially. And so the kind of job is basically you're going to write a bunch of little stories about, Fortnite has added Darth Vader to the game, or Sonic announced that there's a new movie coming out or whatever. You write those. And those just kind of come across your desk all day. And then the self-motivated part of it is kind of in the middle of that. There is also an expectation that you'll be pitching features to the higher up editors, and then they'll give you the go ahead on some of them, and then you can, do those. And so like the most valuable parts of the experience for me was kind of that idea of pitching and figuring out what do other people want to hear about, what's a clickable title, how do I headline this thing so I can write about the thing I want but convince other people that it's also what they want to hear about. But ultimately that was still, if you look at my output at Game Informer, it still kind of is like gaming's best foods. What are the tastiest looking foods in video games? Which is like fun, but doesn't require any kind of huge amount of research or effort.
Yeah. So when did you start making videos on YouTube about games?
I did it pretty soon after the internship ended. I had written just kind of blogs casually for this podcast that I used to work with called Kane and Rinse, and they had just a blog section, and I said, hey, I'm writing, would you like to put some of these up? And it was totally free and whatever, but it was fun for me to have like 15 people read something instead of 3. And eventually I kind of this is actually, it's fitting for this podcast. More than video, I was just so obsessed with having music accompanying my words. Like when I was writing blogs, I always wanted to be like, can you read this paragraph with like this song playing in the background? Because it'll like communicate the vibe I'm going for. Yeah. And so there were people doing the YouTube video essay thing already that I, liked and admired. But it was just this, I wanted a little more discoverability, which YouTube offered, and I wanted to be able to convey more feeling than just words were allowing me to, and video seemed like a good way of doing that.
Yeah. Would you say that with regards to putting your videos together, you have just kind of figured it out on your own? You determined this is what I want these to look like, and you just learned how to do it?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'm totally, self-taught in terms of like Premiere and stuff. And one of the things that I like about video editing is that no one can see how sloppy things are behind the scenes as long as it looks good, like when it comes out. And so I think there are probably a lot of things that I still do really inefficiently, but like that doesn't matter. If the video looks fine when it comes out, that's good enough. And so I did totally kind of like B-roll edited videos for a while, and recently I have been kind of more and more filming myself talking in the videos, which is as much as anything just because I'm talking about topics that are really hard to find constant B-roll for, like it's hard to find 50 minutes of background footage for like therapy apps. It's just it wouldn't be very visually engaging. But yeah, I have enjoyed kind of learning more about the medium while already being like pretty deep in it.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Is when you've watched thousands and thousands of hours of YouTube videos and then you have to make one. Like, oh, let's put this together. And what I noticed with the little rudimentary videos that we put up for our because this is our secondary hustle, I would say, if I were to call it a hustle, which it's not. But it's like so. I mean, the audio podcast is time consuming enough because, of course, I'm mixing in music and I'm doing an edit, and all those things take quite a bit of time. But the video can take as long with no edits sometimes. Not no edits, but you know what I mean? It's just tremendously time consuming. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like how do you spread yourself out? Because you mentioned in one of your videos, you don't sit and traditionally game for a 12-hour session without stopping. So how do you do your videos then?
Yeah, I mean, so I am very, I mean, I am lucky for this thing that I've stumbled into to kind of be whatever the opposite of a procrastinator is, in that like my particular brand of anxiety like really makes me very productive. And so like I am pretty good at sitting down and being like, I need to have a script, like I am just going to kind of sit and type this out or whatever. I do work pretty much in order, though usually it's like I'm actively working on one video and doing research for the next one. So I might be like reading a book or playing a game that I know I want to talk about in 3 months while making the video that'll come out in 2 months. A part of my process that I do think is fairly unique and I really enjoy is the order is I write the script and then I figure out all the music, and then I record the voiceover while listening to the music that will be like done in those sections, and then I edit the visuals in. So it's like I know that music typically kind of comes last in the process for a lot of people, but it's like it informs my vocal delivery a lot, and it also informs just like the rhythms of video editing. And so it's like that's kind of the first thing that goes in.
Wow. So you're listening to the music while you're recording your VO.
Yeah, not always. Not if you can see me on camera, usually I'm not. But if I am just, kind of like sitting here doing kind of a voiceover, I really like, I want to have that because it was just, I mean, it goes back to like the very first video I made where I just hated how I sounded every time. I mean, everyone has to learn to tolerate their own voice on microphone, but it was like the one time that I liked it was when I had the music under it, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, this I can do, because the music is giving me an energy that I can match, and that was really important.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the music is just as much a part of the emotional experience that you've had with this game or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean the editing editing does take a long time. You know, in terms of hours, it's probably the most time consuming, but also it's kind of like, you know, writing is an art in that you kind of can't sit down and just force yourself to do it for like 6 hours. Editing is like chopping down a tree, you know. It's like you know what you have to do, and you just have to like do it until the tree falls over. And so sometimes, because the rest of my job is a lot of kind of like figuring out what to say in a way that's really hard to like push through, I kind of enjoy how just like it is very clear what needs to happen with editing from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, yeah. I do. One of the other things I do, I put together a radio show that I don't host. And so, and it has to be 28 minutes and 30 seconds every week. And so it's like, it's a pre-planned puzzle, right? That I have to make everything fit in with like theme songs and opening quotes and host intros and host banter and all these things. And it's like, and I love editing audio. I can and often do it all day, every day, like edit. I think it's really fun. And this is like a much different kind of fun. You know what I mean? It's like, it just exercises a different part of my editing brain compared to the podcast, where obviously this is as long as we make it in many ways. So, yeah, it's interesting because video ends up kind of being that way too in my head in some way. It's like this big puzzle that I'm putting it together that I don't feel that way about the audio podcast itself for some reason.
There's something about kind of looking at like a blank video timeline and just being like, eventually that's all going to be filled in with something, you know, and you're kind of like building the wall of like different parts of it. I mean, I would say, you know, just on the topic of kind of editing radio shows and whatever, like one of my biggest kind of tone inspirations is stuff like This American Life and Snap Judgment that like, you know, I feel like is maybe a way that I am like more like my parents, where I talk to, you know, people my own age and I'm like, you don't listen to This American Life? And they're like, that sounds like a show for 80-year-olds. Yeah. But the kind of like, I do think, even though my videos are, you know, I decide the length and they have been trending upwards, like I am not a like 3-hour video person, which some kind of gaming videos on YouTube go towards. And I do think about pacing a lot. And so the kind of like those storytelling shows where they're like, we're not necessarily trying to, you know, we're not teaching you about something that you didn't know necessarily. We just want you to be engaged throughout this whole like period is something that I'm always kind of trying to emulate. And that thing of like, when you get home and This American Life is still playing, and so you sit in your driveway for like 10 minutes and listen to it, you know, it's like, that's the goal. That's what you want people to be doing. Yep.
The driveway moment. That's what we call them in public radio, is the driveway moment. And, you know, I probably absorbed a lot through that kind of listening as well. Also Prairie Home Companion, even though I have different opinions about that show now than I used to, but it's like, you know, shows that used audio as part of, you know, they're using audio elements in addition, right? There's Foley added, and there's, you know, it's useful to tell the story. And
and just, I mean, just that kind of just storytelling is so, I think it's distinct from being informative, and it's distinct from being just kind of like a fun hangout sesh. You know, it's like, it is this very challenging third thing that you're trying to get to.
Very much. So I felt very lucky when we spoke a few weeks ago with Ben Hansen and the MinMax crew, of which you're a part, to get to see one of your cats. At one point, you got up and went and got a drink of water or something like that, and one of your cats made an appearance, and I was like dying as Ben was continuing saying whatever he was saying. And then right before we started, I got to see one of your little girl kitties as well. But will you please tell us about your pets?
Yeah, so it is an important note that I want to make is I am not technically the pet's father. I live with my roommate Caroline, who has two cats named Miel and Paloma. But as sometimes happens, Miel has decided that I am her father and does not like my roommate and only likes me, which is a cruel choice that only a cat could make.
Right.
And so Miel does spend a lot of time in my office. And then I have a dog that that is mine and I've had for, going on 7 years at this point, named Tori.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about Tori, though. What's Tori look like?
Tori she's like a kind of an Australian cattle dog shepherd.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Mutt, like a low to the ground herding dog.
Yeah.
She's very kind of, she has that herding instinct where she just really wants everything to be in order, and like if something is out of place, she'll notice and she'll kind of be concerned about it and whatever. But I am very grateful she's chilled out over the years, so she's no longer the kind of like nuclear reactor that those breeds are when they're puppies.
Yeah, you need to take them out to run 17 times a day or something. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No, she's great. I had actually a video that I made a long time ago about The Last Guardian, where the Last Guardian is a game that you play and think about your own pets. Like that is just the kind of the point of that game.
Yes.
And Tori definitely, when she was a puppy, she had some real kind of food aggression issues that we worked through and whatever. And so whenever I see any media about kind of a lovable but unruly animal, I'm like, that's it. I know, I'm there.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. What videos do you have coming up, Jacob, that you want to talk about, or do you want to keep them all secret?
I'm fine. I can drop a exclusive on this podcast. So the reason that I've been reading this big Ronald Reagan book, and also behind me you can see the full box set of Akira, is I have been thinking about the concept of orbital lasers, of kind of like, the sci-fi weapon that during the Cold War, America was like, we're gonna make this real, and the various ways it's existed. I think it's very interesting that there is something that has never existed that all of us are just kind of like, oh yeah, we know what that is. Like when you're watching an anime and there's like a big space laser, like we're not confused. We're like, yeah, we understand that. And so that's in the works. And I am also excited to be restarting soon a podcast that I do with my friend named Blake Hester. And the podcast is called Something Rotten, and it is about the kind of violent nihilistic game era from, like, I don't know, 2005 to 2012, which was kind of a real kind of like gross boys period for video games, where you had a lot of these just like grungy Xbox 360 games that seem to really relish in not being anything except violent and gross. But like in retrospect, that's a very interesting period to talk about. So I can't say what we'll be doing yet, but that show is coming out soon, like at the beginning of 2023, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, Something Rotten is what
Something Rotten. You'll be able to get it. I mean, you can already, there are 2 seasons out already, and so you can find it wherever you find your podcasts.
Do you do your YouTube videos in seasons, or do you just release them as you
want? They are basically monthly. Sometimes they're 2 a month if I'm real motivated, but they just more or less 1 a month just come out.
Mm-hmm. And how much do you do with the min-max stuff? You're on the min-max show?
I'm on the show. I'm a cohort, so I'm not,
Yeah.
or I'm a contributor. I can't remember how which one of his things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say I'm probably on, two of their four podcasts a month generally, and then hop into streams and other things when they want me or when I think it sounds fun.
So are you excited for anything in 2023 that would surprise us? Because, of course, there are many things, pardon me, that we're all excited for next year.
Right. That's like, the new Zelda, the new etc. Yeah. But I don't know. That's a great question. I am like, as time has gone on, I enjoy so much having never heard of a thing and then it becoming my favorite thing. I don't know if you were a part of, or if you listened to the episodes of MinMax where we were talking about the Indian movie Triple R that came out this year, RRR. That's like this unbelievable kind of like spectacle action movie that's now just like, one of my favorite theater going experiences ever. And it's like, never in my life had I heard anyone say anything about that movie before it came out. And so I am just kind of excited for more of those to like be completely blindsided by something.
My friend Sam is playing Mass Effect for the very first time, and I'm so jealous because I wish I could play Mass Effect for the first time again, and just experience that I didn't expect. Yeah.
You always try to live vicariously through your friends who, and it's like, I've convinced 3 people to play Disco Elysium, and every time they do, I'm just like, tell me everything that's happening and your reactions so I can like have that experience again.
Other than Citizen Sleeper, what are kind of your takeaways of 2022? And, you said you'd fight anybody who said it was a bad year for games, which is true, of course. That'd be a ridiculous thing for anybody to say, but, No, I think it was a really interesting year and resulted in a lot of good kind of end of year lists because there were so few kind of big agreeable AAA games that people kind of had to get into the nitty gritty. And so it's like there are always tons of good indie games that come out this year, but I feel like there are, in previous years, there have been so many just kind of default AAA games where it's like, this has a high enough level of production quality that it's going on the list and no one really needs to talk about it that much. But this year really did not have many of those. And so you get, much more interesting choices like Norco or Citizen Sleeper or Immortality ranking really high up on these lists because gaming outlets don't have those default options that they go back to. Yeah. Immortality, I have not played. Netflix, I think you can play it on Netflix, right? If you have your Netflix account.
You can play it on your phone as long as you have like a Netflix sign in.
Yep. And Immortality, we had Nanita Desai on the show talking about the amazing music. She's such a phenomenal composer, generally speaking, but her music for Immortality is so amazing because she had to score 3 different movies, right? So just such a cool story just about the soundtrack, let alone the game itself, which, you said might be the most mature game ever made, which I thought was a really interesting comment. If you think about it, it's like, wow, yeah, this is really deep into unpacking the story here.
One of those just kind of like, we all know that there are kind of books that are maybe too challenging for us or whatever, of like, oh, I need to talk to a smart person about that. But in games, the only way that gets talked about is usually just they are literally too hard. Like, I can't get past the big guy in Elden Ring. And so it's like,
Shut up.
I think it's just really cool to have a game like Immortality that it's like the hard part isn't beating it. The hard part is kind of like understanding it in the same way that it is hard to understand, many, many books.
Wow, it really was an interesting year. Of course, when this goes up, it will be 2023. So we have a lot of
We
amazing
made it.
things to I know to experience in 2023 as well. But yeah, is there anything else you want to mention that or talk about? I mean, tell people how to find you and where to find you.
Yeah, if you type in Jacob Geller, I'll pop up. My main thing is the YouTube channel. So Jacob Geller on YouTube. I have made a video about Immortality's music, but in a very different way than you interviewed the composer about Immortality's music. So I would recommend that one to the listeners of this show. And yeah, I don't really want to. I don't know what's going on with Twitter. You don't have to follow me on Twitter, but listen to MinMax and follow Jacob Geller on YouTube. Those are my big things.
Awesome. Jacob, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure chatting with you.
It was truly my pleasure.